The moment I set foot in this realm, I landed a god-level spirit training system that turned capturing creatures into a cosmic jackpot. Snagging a Froakie handed me a complete guide to water-release ninjutsu. Trapping a Larvitar gifted me the Sansan fruit. And nabbing Mutwo unlocked the divine power of Ultra Instinct. I genuinely believed my path to total dominance as a sect leader would be smoother than buttered silk, but life had other plans. Suddenly, my life transformed into a chaotic storm of dramatic encounters and divine catastrophes. Yukino Shida was claiming her Piplup missed me. Yui wanted to drag me on realm-exploring dates. Katanda kept asking unsettlingly personal questions about hard objects, and Ran was whispering panicked warnings about Shinichi lurking right outside the door. Before I could even process the romance comedy madness, mythical beasts went completely berserk, dimensions shattered like cheap glass. And the entire world of elves teetered on the brink of total annihilation. Naturally, I got swept right into a post-apocalyptic chat group, where fiery dynamic ladies and literal goddesses began squabbling over who got to claim my affection while the universe burned around us. Rewinding back to where it all started in Chiba City, Japan province of the Dragon Country. I was just an ordinary guy wearing headphones, glued to a phone screen. I was watching a high-stakes match commentary where a Garchomp and a Hydreigon were busy beating the daylight out of each other. The commentator, Tang Yuan, was practically screaming through the speakers about energy surges, hyper beams, and split-second stun frames, analyzing the absolute chaos in a 100 times slow-motion playback. Watching that Garchomp get blasted away by a Dragon Pulse was a reality check. These pocket monsters were not harmless plush toys. They were literal walking nuclear warheads capable of leveling mountains with a single casual sneeze. 18 years ago, I arrived on this planet from Earth with the sparkling new identity of a fresh orphan. Back then, I assumed I had dropped into a simple world where humans and pocket monsters lived in harmony. Thank goodness this planet was 10 times larger than Earth, or these oversized fluffy bombs would have flattened human civilization 3 centuries ago. My original genius plan was simple. Play the ultimate copycat by plagiarizing popular works from my past life, stack up massive piles of cash, and eventually buy my way into becoming a respected trainer. That lazy blueprint crumbled into dust the moment I looked around my daily life. My junior high deskmate turned out to be the chaotic, pink-haired Fujiwara Chica. Moving to a new neighborhood put me right next door to the famous Muri Detective Agency. My high school classmate introduced me to the Ice Queen Yukino Shida, and I even bumped into a stunning Shizuku Kuro cosplayer at a comic convention. This was a massive, multi-series anime mashup world. I took off my headphones and sighed softly, realizing the momentous day to finally receive my very own first spirit partner had arrived at last. I was just about to pray to the heavens for a strong start when a girl's sharp, sudden scream shattered my train of thought completely. I subconsciously glanced toward the commotion and spotted a bright blue rabbit-like creature with sharp spikes on its back bolting straight into oncoming traffic. A slick luxury sedan was barreling down the road with zero chance of braking in time. Watching this train wreck unfold gave me an unsettling dose of déjà vu. Before my brain could even finish processing the scene, my body took the wheel. I grabbed a dazed, dead-eyed boy by the wrist, yanked him behind me, and prepared to play hero. Reincarnating into this realm of oversized, superpowered creatures meant I could not afford to be a lazy couch potato like in my past life. I spent the last decade working out almost every single day, building a physical condition that sat comfortably at the top tier among my peers. Operating on pure instinct, I snatched the furry reckless runner by its ears and executed a smooth, dramatic roll away from the speeding bumper. The 40-pound creature rubbed against my arm like an affectionate bunny, totally oblivious to the near miss. Seeing that the danger had passed, the lifeless-looking kid I had rescued simply turned around and walked away without a word. I let out a heavy breath, stood up to dust off my clothes, and scolded the little culprit in a low voice. I reminded the creature that these fancy cars were forged from heavy-duty alloys and that a tiny creature like it stood no chance in a demolition derby. A slightly wobbly girl rushed toward me while clutching her chest in sheer relief. She bowed deeply to thank me for saving her pet, while the car driver scrambled out of his vehicle to check if I was still intact. I waved off their panic, ready to drop a few polite pleasantries, when 2 robotic computer voices suddenly began ringing simultaneously inside my brain. The first voice chimed with a crisp ding-dong, announcing that my heroic rescue had triggered the activation of the god-level spirit training system, instantly rewarding me with maximum creature affinity. Right on its heels, a second voice beeped loudly, declaring that the post-apocalyptic chat group had detected that my current world was trapped in a doomed, apocalyptic state, inviting me to join its ranks. I stood frozen like a stone statue. My brain was spinning in absolute confusion. Saving a creature unlocked a cheat system? More importantly, since when did this vibrant, creature-filled paradise count as a post-apocalyptic nightmare? The girl looked at my frozen expression with growing concern, worrying that I had cracked my skull on the pavement. Snapping back to reality, I quickly reassured her that I was completely fine. My mind was racing far too fast to care about polite chit-chat anymore. I blurted out that my clothes were dirty, promised to see her at school, and made a hasty retreat before she could even process my grand exit. As I bolted away, the little blue rabbit rubbed its head against the girl's leg, suddenly finding itself deeply attached to my lingering scent. Meanwhile, I sprinted all the way home, burst through my front door, and immediately interrogated the new training system in my mind to figure out why it decided to wake up just now. The system calmly explained that its awakening required me to either own a creature or establish a deep bond with one. Saving a life, as it turns out, counted as a massive debt of gratitude bond. I facepalmed internally. If I had known the unlock requirement was that simple, I would have spent the last 10 years camping on street corners waiting to pull animals out of oncoming traffic. I cleared my thoughts and demanded a quick breakdown of its actual utility. The system proudly declared that it could reveal every hidden detail of my future creature partners, including levels, traits, personalities, potential, individual values, and move sets. On top of that, it promised to locate rare growth resources across the world and grant special item rewards for completing tasks. I stroked my chin, wondering if it had any personal perks for me directly, but it admitted that every single feature revolved around raising creatures. I shrugged off the mild disappointment. Powering up my partners was basically the exact same thing as powering up myself, so I was perfectly happy with the jackpot. Then my focus shifted to the second mysterious intruder in my head, that apocalyptic chat group. The secondary interface beeped again, presenting itself as a cross-dimensional platform meant to help various realms survive total destruction, reconfirming its invitation for me to join. I stared at the prompt with a heavy frown. To the average citizen, this world looked like a normal urban landscape that had quietly merged with mysterious pocket monster dimensions over the last 300 years. Humans and creatures had learned to live side by side, harvesting resources from secret pocket realms. However, the merging process of two realities was rarely a gentle handshake. Thinking back to the world-ending power of champion-level beasts in the news, and then imagining the short-tempered, godlike legendary titans sleeping in those deep dimensions, a cold shiver ran down my spine. Perhaps this world really was sitting on a ticking apocalyptic time bomb. A sharp shudder ran down my spine as I imagined a furious, apocalyptic sea monster or a reality-warping dragon invading our world. If one of those ultimate cosmic gods lost its temper, this place would transform into a desolate wasteland within minutes. Dropping my hesitation like a hot potato, I immediately slapped the button to join the chat group. A series of chimes declared my arrival as the lone inaugural member, instantly handing me sole administrative privileges. The control panel was surprisingly clean, displaying 4 shiny features for daily check-ins, a prize lottery, item enhancements, and resource recycling. Unlike my creature training system, this new digital playground was built entirely to spoil me rotten. Before I could poke around, 2 identical mechanical alerts chimed inside my skull, asking if I wanted to merge and upgrade the dual systems. I pressed for details, eager to see what kind of hybrid monster this fusion would create. The system explained that merging would supercharge all features, upgrade task rewards, and pass every single stat and ability of my future creatures directly to me. Meanwhile, my group tasks would expand, allowing me to feed multidimensional chat rewards directly to my furry team. My eyes lit up like Christmas trees at the absolute absurdity of this double-dipping strategy. I could clear a task, hoard double the loot, pump my creatures full of cosmic power-ups, and then automatically inherit their upgraded divine strength for myself. If I snagged a technique like Ultra Instinct from the chat group, I could slap it onto my partner and get the Dodge God powers returned to me in a neat, package deal. I slammed the confirm button without a second thought, and the system smoothly announced the successful fusion. My initial quest immediately morphed into a simple objective: acquire my very first pocket monster. Doing so would officially open the group invitation feature, unlock the lottery, and grant a mystery prize scaled directly to the quality of my new partner. The next morning, I strolled into Class 3-1 at Sobu High School right as the bell rang. I took my rightful throne in the back row by the window, the sacred seat reserved exclusively for anime protagonists. Passing by Yui Yugahama, I gave her a subtle glance toward our teacher, Hiratsuka Shizuka, signaling her to drop her dramatic thank you bow before she got us both scolded. Up ahead, Yukino Yukinoshita let out a tiny sigh of relief after confirming I hadn't cracked my skull during yesterday's roadside circus. Leaning back in my chair, I gave a gentle poke to the bob-haired stealth ninja sitting beside me, offering a quiet good morning to Megumi Kato, who responded with her usual deadpan charm. Up at the podium, our teacher clapped her hands to quiet down the roaring crowd of hyped-up teenagers. Every single student in the room was vibrating with nervous energy, and honestly, who could blame them? In this world, turning 18 and passing high school exams was the ultimate golden ticket to capturing a real-life battle monster. While ordinary folk settled for boring desk jobs, top-scoring students at elite academies like ours got first dibs on government-sponsored, high-potential creatures to jumpstart careers as elite trainers or researchers. Sobu High sat comfortably at the top of the academic food chain, meaning the state was about to supply us with some serious high-grade partners. The class monitor finished roll call in record time, and Shizuka signed off on the roster with a sharp flick of her pen, preparing to usher us into the most chaotic chapter of our lives. The teacher announced that the individual high school entrance exam results had been handed out days prior, calling for the students whose names were on the special list to step outside. A ripple of intense envy swept through the room as everyone stared at us, fully aware of what was at stake. Scoring in the top ranks meant getting direct access to the premier starter pool, which housed the legendary 3 classic starter lines. Ever since scientists unearthed ancient documents 2 centuries ago, these starter families had been praised as the ultimate cheat codes for novice trainers. Unlike common creatures that cap out early or high-maintenance powerhouses that consume fortunes like black holes, these starters offered the perfect balance of easy early training and terrifying in-game power. Out in the wild market, a single pristine starter egg could easily command a price tag of over 1.5 million dragon coins, with prime specimens skyrocketing past 5 million without a seller in sight. Our teacher, Shizuka Hiratsuka, nervously rubbed her fingers together before calling out the first 3 names. Myself, Yukino Yukinoshita, and Eru Katanda. I watched the long-haired beauty Yutaha Kasumigakaka lower her eyes in quiet disappointment, assuming she had missed the cut. But Shizuka suddenly called out Yutaha's name as the unexpected 4th candidate, lifting a massive weight off her own shoulders. Yutaha blinked in disbelief, a stunning smile breaking through her usual icy exterior, while the rest of the class erupted in confused chatter over this unprecedented extra slot. Shizuka slammed her fist onto the podium to silence the crowd, quickly reciting a pre-planned official explanation about rare quota expansions based on high overall class performance. She then instructed the class monitor to hand over 4 specialized capture spheres before ushering the 4 of us into the hallway. As we stepped outside, I couldn't help but flash Shizuka a playful, knowing wink to let her know I saw right through the administrative smoke and mirrors. My silent taunt nearly caused her to blow a fuse, and she raised a clenched fist, threatening to withhold my capture gear right then and there. I quickly backed down, accepting the 4 small boxes containing high-tier great balls and distributing them to the girls according to the labels. While Yukino and Yutaha maintained their fortress-like aloofness and Katanda stood by with polite elegance, Shizuka took the opportunity to lay down the ground rules. She reminded us that our fingerprints were already pre-registered to these high-grade spheres, but we were working against a strict half-hour countdown. If any of us failed to secure a starter within 30 minutes, we would be banished back to the regular class pool to pick from the general reserve garden, losing our golden ticket until after the college entrance exams in June. Listening to the briefing, Yutaha's mind drifted over our academic history. Ever since we entered Sobu High School, I had firmly held the #1 spot in our grade like an immovable boulder, while Yukino, Katanda, and Yutaha constantly played musical chairs for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. Under normal rules, Yutaha would have been left out in the cold, especially considering Yukino came from a powerhouse political family with deep roots in the city's Pokémon Association. Yet somehow, the cosmos, or a very generous administrative shuffle, had handed all 4 of us a shot at greatness. Katanda Eru brought equally terrifying family backing to the table. Her family basically owned the entire Pokémon food monopoly in Chiba City. Feeding a living, breathing nuclear weapon was not a simple retail business. It was essentially the modern equivalent of trading high-grade military ammunition from 3 centuries ago. Carrying that kind of strategic weight meant the Katanda family possessed endless resources. Naturally, neither her family nor Yukinoshida's were ever going to let their precious daughters settle for mediocrity when the starter selection rolled around. Yet, high school entrance exam results were treated like top-secret state intelligence, making it impossible to bribe the system beforehand. The only logical play was for these corporate giants to pull strings and force the school board to expand the starter quota to 4 spots. That way, even if an outsider pushed into the upper ranks, their daughters would still get VIP treatment. Ironically, both girls legitimately aced the exams anyway, leaving Yutaha as the accidental winner who reaped the benefits of high society politicking without needing a single connection. We followed Shizuka down the hallway while she droned on about standard safety rules, heading straight for the massive gymnasium. But as we neared the building, my newly fused system suddenly exploded with distance notifications inside my mind. It pinged a 2v Charmander, a 3v Trico, a 3v Piplup, and a ridiculous 4v Froakie waiting just under 200 meters ahead. My jaw almost hit the floor. I glanced sideways at Yukinoshida and Katanda, realizing the sheer scale of the strings their families had pulled. In this real world, individual values represented a creature's innate genetic ceiling, ranging from 0 up to 31 in 6 distinct stat categories. Out in the wild, finding a single 1v specimen with a maximized stat was like winning the lottery, yet here sat 4 absolute genetic miracles packed into one room. Even without digital status screens, special breeding programs and high-tech scans had clearly been weaponized to secure the absolute elite of the species. Shizuka pushed open the heavy gymnasium doors, revealing a massive indoor garden enclosure where 4 adorable starter creatures were tumbling around in the grass. The moment the 3 girls stepped inside, their hearts melted into puddle form. Before any of us could take another step, all 4 little creatures froze, sniffed the air, and came wobbling toward us like magnets, clinging to the enclosure fence and chirping in absolute delight. Shizuka stood there holding 4 bags of specialty berries, completely flabbergasted by how wildly affectionate these normally shy infants were acting toward complete strangers. I kept my mouth shut and secretly checked my own status panel, where my freshly unlocked maximum affinity trait was practically glowing in gold. Taking full advantage of my passive charm, I hopped over the wooden railing and sat cross-legged right in the middle of the grass. The tiny Charmander instantly tackled my leg, rolling over so I could rub its soft, yellowish belly while it squints its eyes in pure bliss. Pulling up its detailed panel, I scanned its impressive stats, noting its brave nature, double-maximized individual values, and an overall potential rating that teetered right on the edge of King Tier. Dominance. Evaluating starter potential was an exact science in this world, where total individual values above 150 signaled a future powerhouse. That first Charmander scored a stunning 165, meaning proper training could easily push it to King Tier glory. Before the tiny dragon could finish snuggling in my arms, a jealous Trico shoved it aside to claim my lap. I picked up the gecko to run a quick diagnostic, finding a naughty nature paired with 3 max stats totaling 166. While impressive, its lower special attack and pure grass typing made it slightly less attractive than a dual fire and flying Charizard down the line. Next in line was a Piplup flapping its tiny flippers in pure excitement. A quick scan revealed a serious nature and a total value of 170, absolute prime material for a future elite. Empoleon was a walking fortress of water and steel with massive special stats, making this little penguin an absolute tank. I scratched its belly affectionately, making a mental note that unless the remaining Froakie delivered a miracle, Piplup was coming home with me. Then I picked up the quiet Froakie that had been patiently waiting its turn. Every time Traveler harbors a soft spot for Greninja's legendary battle forms, and I was no exception. Opening its status screen, I almost choked on my own spit. The little frog boasted a mind-blowing total value of 181, just 5 tiny points shy of a perfect score, with maxed physical attack, special attack, and speed, plus a near-perfect health pool. To top off this absolute jackpot, it carried the ultra-rare Bond transformation hidden ability, pushing its potential clean into champion territory. I squeezed the divine amphibian tightly, rubbing its soft belly while it squinted in supreme satisfaction. Poor Piplup realized it was losing the race and let out a heartbroken cry from my knee. Charmander and Trico immediately piled on as well, wriggling, chirping, and aggressively acting cute to steal back my attention. Froakie simply smirked from my arm like a victorious royal, completely unbothered by the salty audience below. My passive affinity trait was proving to be a cheat code of catastrophic proportions, turning these high-grade creatures into clingy fanboys after a single meeting. I spent the next few minutes soothing the jealous trio, gently explaining that they would be going home with the three lovely ladies standing nearby. Looking over at Yukino, Utaha, and Katanda, I could see them staring at my creature-covered lap with absolute, undisguised envy. I quickly flashed a desperate wink to the three girls standing nearby, and they immediately caught my drift. Working in silent unison, they stepped up to claim their respective partners. Yukino went straight for the bag of berries favored by the weeping Piplup. Katanda offered a polite bow to Utaha, who brushed off the gesture while her eyes lingered hungrily on the Charmander resting across my lap. Utaha's legs, clad in dark pantyhose, actually twitched with nervous tension. Katanda gracefully picked up the grass-type treats for the Trico and offered her sweet thanks to the teacher, leaving Utaha to collect the final bag of fireberries with a quiet sigh of relief. Shizuka tossed the remaining food to me, grinning in absolute satisfaction. Normally, distributing prime starters turned into a gladiatorial arena of petty arguments, microscopic score comparisons, and stressed-out teachers catching migraines. Watching us divide the spoils in complete, harmonious peace felt like an absolute miracle to her. However, watching me remain buried under a pile of hyperactive creatures while three gorgeous girls hovered around me, Shizuka couldn't help but sense an impending disaster. Katanda easily lured her new Trico over with a few tasty snacks. Utaha used her pre-planned massage techniques to turn the little fire dragon into a purring puddle of warmth. The only real drama came from the Piplup, who threw a dramatic, tear-soaked temper tantrum on my leg because it couldn't come home with me. With my divine Froakie already safely secured, I spent 10 agonizing minutes helping Yukino calm down the dramatically sobbing penguin. National rules strictly capped us at one official starter before the June entrance exams to keep ultra-wealthy families from overwhelming the system, so taking two was totally off the table. By the time the stubborn bird finally agreed to enter Yukino's sphere, she was utterly exhausted. Wiping a bead of sweat from her forehead, she offered me a soft, deeply grateful thank you, mentioning that she owed me yet another massive favor. Katanda stood nearby, watching the interaction with wide, intensely curious eyes. She was practically bursting with unanswered questions about why creatures threw themselves at me like magnetics and what secret history I shared with the icy Yukino. I simply waved off the gratitude, far more interested in inspecting the shiny new loot waiting inside my system interface. Right on cue, the fused cheat code chimed in my brain, confirming the quest completion. It officially unlocked daily check-ins, the prize lottery, and multidimensional invitations. On top of that, it dumped a staggering pile of rewards straight into my inventory. A complete manual for water-release ninjutsu, 20 custom energy cubes tailored specifically for my new amphibian, and 3 pristine water attribute potential fruits. Shizuka dismissed us for the day, offering options to hang around, visit the common garden, or head straight home. I immediately recalled my champion frog into its ball, declared my exit to buy supplies, and sprinted toward the door. Yukino tried to call out to me, but I vanished down the hallway like a ghost, leaving her to let out a quiet, exasperated sigh. Watching Yukino's disappointment, Utaha's clever brain began spinning. She cleared her throat, turned to the other two girls, and proposed creating a brand new school club together with me. She reasoned that it would give us a private sanctuary to train our new partners and fulfill our promise to let their creatures play with mine. Yukino tried to object, but thinking of her clingy Piplup, the words died right in her throat. Right on cue, Katanda raised her hand like an eager elementary student, asking with pure innocence what they would do if I simply refused to join their little club, leaving both girls standing in absolute, stunned silence. My house was just a brisk 10-minute walk from Sobu High School. I practically sprinted through the front door, slammed and locked it, and immediately dived into checking my new chat group loot. The first prize was a complete guide to water-release ninjutsu, which made me wonder if my new amphibious partner would need a functional chakra system to use it. The interface quickly reassured me that all reward items operated completely free of energy restrictions, meaning my little Froakie could hurl ninja techniques to its heart's content as long as it met the basic strength requirements. I scratched my chin, weighing the actual combat value of this prize. In this world of divine pocket monsters, top-tier champion creatures could level mountain ranges and vaporize coastal cities with a single serious attack. In my past life's anime lore, ninja magic only reached that insane godlike tier with peak legendary figures like Madara or Hashirama. Since my Froki already possessed champion-level potential, standard ninja spells felt almost like a minor upgrade. However, the system quickly clarified that all rewards were custom-enhanced and heavily modified. Standard creature moves were incredibly limited in variety, while ninja arts offered massive flexibility. Maxing out high-tier moves usually meant dealing with nasty post-attack stun frames, but learning techniques like hard vortex blades or water-severing waves would give my frog a versatile, lightning-fast arsenal with zero lag. Realizing this was a pure win, I immediately pulled out the ninjutsu manual and offered it to my partner. The system prompted a confirmation, requiring an intimacy score of at least 200. I chuckled, realizing that playing with the little guy for just a few minutes had already maxed out its affection. I slammed the confirm button, and a massive flood of ninja knowledge instantly echoed into my own mind, proving that whatever my creature learned, I automatically inherited. Next up were 20 custom energy cubes designed to speed up its growth, along with 3 miraculous individual value fruits. Without a second thought, I fed all 3 fruits to my frog. It rested its tiny chin on its hands, happily munching away while its physical defense and health potential instantly ticked up. With the individual rewards sorted out, I turned my attention back to the chat group interface and hit the button to invite our very first batch of cross-dimensional members. Within seconds, 4 new names flashed across the screen: a Clouds and Wind Adept, a clueless school doctor, a butterfly flower pillar, and an ambitious emperor. The messaging screen immediately erupted into complete chaos. The mountain adept questioned what kind of immortal sorcery was messing with her conscious mind while complaining about her absurdly chatty group title. The clueless school doctor assumed she was having a weird dream, while the demon-slaying flower pillar panicked, suspecting some high-level blood demon art was infiltrating her head. Meanwhile, the emperor wondered aloud if everyone was just using fancy new Tokyo tech. Recognizing these iconic personalities from my past life's pop culture knowledge, I stepped in as the official group administrator. I quickly dropped a message to calm the room, introducing the platform as a cross-dimensional hub designed to help different realms prepare for catastrophic apocalypses, and began explaining how the system could instantly scan and quantify everyone's hidden abilities and attributes. I dropped a detailed breakdown into the interface, explaining that the system continuously monitors regional threat levels and impending doom scenarios. Clearing these events reaps massive benefits without costing a single point. I laid out the daily routine, checking in nets up to 100 points, while 1,000 points buys a single multi-realm lottery pull. I warned them to hoard 9,000 points for the discounted 10-pull pack, which guarantees a high-tier drop. Points can also be dumped into raw stat upgrades, curing curses, or earned back by recycling unwanted gear. After dropping the knowledge bomb, I slammed the daily check-in button and instantly scored a perfect 100 points. I smirked, suspecting my administrator status gave me a secret luck boost, but I wasn't about to complain. The chat screen immediately lit up as everyone processed their world's apocalypse rating. The mountain adept fretted over Tevat's terrifying 8-star rating, wondering if cosmic abyss entities were coming. The group's ruler noted a 4-star threat level involving parasitic bugs, while both the ditzy school doctor and the butterfly pillar stared at their 3-star ratings, pinning the blame on zombies and man-eating demons. I nonchalantly dropped my own world's threat rating into the room, a catastrophic 10 stars. I warned the mountain adept that an 8-star rating meant threats vastly beyond basic elemental gods, likely involving primordial cosmic creators. Naturally, my own 10-star world made everything else look like a walk in the park, though a cold shiver ran down my spine thinking about what kind of apocalyptic titans were waiting in my backyard. When the mountain adept asked how I knew so much, I strategically ignored her. Engaging that overly verbose bird woman in open debate would trap me in a 10-hour conversation. Instead, I confirmed the demon slayer's fears and zeroed in on the ditzy school doctor, asking if her name was Shizuka Marikawa and warning her that a full-blown zombie outbreak was heading her way. The adept bristled at my mysterious knowledge, but I brushed off her suspicion. I told the demon slayer to watch out for a lethal upper moon demon when she turned 17, explaining how she could launch a zero-cost cross-dimensional cry for help when disaster strikes. Turning back to Shizuka, I casually asked for her age. When she nervously revealed she was 27, I admitted I was just asking for fun, but warned her that the undead apocalypse would hit right when her sniper friend was deployed to the airport. The poor doctor whined in the chat, accusing me of being a malicious bully for teasing her. The mountain adept chimed in to scold my rude behavior, especially after I almost addressed her by her iconic online nickname, that woman. She snapped, demanding to know who I was calling that woman. So I smoothly told her to go by her mortal name, Xianyun, and warned her to keep an eye out for a pair of golden-haired, dimension-hopping twins. Before anyone could grill me further, I hit the offline button and stretched my arms. The more you talk, the more secrets you spill, so keeping it brief was the ultimate strategy. Whistling a cheerful tune, I grabbed my Pokeball and headed out the door to take my champion potential frog on a lavish shopping spree. Meanwhile, in another dimension, Shizuka Marikawa blinked her large, innocent eyes, tapped her lip, and slowly dialed her best friend Nanami. It took her 2 agonizing minutes to hunt down the numbers on her phone pad. When her friend picked up from her active duty assignment, Shizuka tried to explain the mysterious cross-dimensional chat group, only to find an invisible cosmic force sealing her lips tight. Realizing she couldn't blab about the system, she simply asked if Nanami was currently posted at the airport. When her friend confirmed the location in surprise, Shizuka mumbled a quick goodbye and hung up, leaving the baffled sniper to wonder if some local street punk had been picking on her ditzy friend. Imagining some completely unmentionable scenario happening to her helpless friend, Nanami broke into a cold sweat, deciding she had to sprint right back and rescue the poor girl. Meanwhile, back in my domain, Chiba City stood as a booming urban juggernaut, boasting 8 massive creature centers. The central hub was essentially a sprawling megametropolis of its own, fully packed with specialized shopping malls, high-tech hospitals, luxury hotels, private gymnasiums, and sleek beauty salons. While I had visited this creature paradise a few times before, I had only been allowed to buy useless novelty merchandise as a regular civilian. Today marked my official debut as a licensed trainer, free to splurge real cash on my new partner. I loaded up on high-grade snacks, interactive toys, specialized medicines, and a few ridiculously plush sleeping nests, instantly scanning my phone to pay and having the heavy bag shipped straight to my front door. With the retail therapy sorted out, I carried my little frog over to the central training complex to begin our grinding session. The welcoming receptionist's eyes instantly lit up at my handsome face, warmly greeting me and recognizing me as a fresh high school senior picking up his first partner. After a quick QR scan, she handed over a tablet and walked me through their state-of-the-art facilities. I booked a high-tier aquatic chamber labeled Water 105. The room was a soundproof, reinforced vault equipped with twin training pools, heavy-duty treadmills, specialized dumbbells, and impact-testing sandbags. I dropped my frog onto the tiles, dragged a heavy combat target into the shallow water, and instructed my partner to hop into the pool for our very first diagnostic run. Deciding to play the dramatic anime protagonist, I raised my hand toward the ceiling and loudly ordered my tiny infant partner to unleash an ultra-high-tier, hard vortex water blade. The little frog froze mid-pose, staring back at me with a hilariously deadpan expression that clearly silently asked if I had lost my absolute mind trying to force a level 5 infant to cast legendary magic. I laughed, patted its slippery head, and told it I was just pulling its leg, ordering it to stick to a basic water gun instead. I stepped back, opened the testing software on my phone, and watched the creature puff up its cheeks to blast a thumb-thick stream of water straight into the target, registering a solid 111 points of elemental damage. Next, I decided to test out our newly imported ninja magic, ordering the frog to try casting a basic C-rank water chaos wave. The charging time took a few seconds longer as energy gathered in its tiny chest, but it successfully spat out a surging wave that smashed the target for an impressive 144 damage points. Running the test 5 times in a row proved that while the standard water gun hovered around the 110 damage mark, the ninja magic consistently hit near 150, effectively proving that low-tier ninjutsu easily outclassed basic creature moves. Watching its digital experience bar fill up at an astonishing speed, I realized that those custom energy cubes I fed it earlier were acting like supercharged rocket fuel for its growth. I immediately drafted a grueling training regimen on my phone, setting up alternating rotation cycles of elemental blasts and leg muscle jump training until its energy was totally depleted, reminding my future champion that it needed to work hard so we could both ascend to cosmic godhood. I am convinced that working out is a colossal waste of my precious time. Why bother sweating when I can simply stroll behind my glorious amphibious companion and reap the unearned rewards? When accused of laziness, I simply argue that I provide crucial emotional support to my tiny aquatic athlete. Naturally, I swapped into my swimming trunks, took a front row seat by the pool, and became a human megawatt cheerleader. My enthusiastic chants filled the air, urging my little friend to push past every limit. 6 hours flew by, and I strutted out of the training hall brimming with energy. My froglet is an absolute prodigy. Fueled by 2 energy cubes, it powered through 2 brutal training sessions with only a brief, luxurious massage and 30 minutes of rest in between. By the time it finished its daily regimen, it had leaped up 3 full levels and drastically sharpened its mastery over its water attacks. In fact, a single full-power aquatic wave from my little buddy now strikes with double its original fury, clocking in at 280 points of raw devastation. Basking in the red glow of the evening sky, I stretched lazily outside the facility. Physical exertion clearly speeds up nutrient absorption, making disciplined training a brilliant shortcut for leveling up. My strategy is proven, and all I need now is a real battle test. I decided that a post-dinner showdown at the arena would be the ideal proving ground. High school seniors across the city had just received their starter partners, making them prime candidates for my grand debut. Before I could complete that thought, a subtle presence crept up behind me. My reflexes flared, ready to launch a sudden strike, but a waft of an unmistakably rich perfume made me instantly stay my hand. A sudden, soft impact pressed against my back as a pair of delicate hands gently blindfolded me. Given the massive height difference between my 6'1" frame and my playful attacker, I had to bend my knees into an awkward half squat just to accommodate the surprise game. Warm air brushed against my ear, sending a sharp shiver down my spine. Without hesitating, I reached backward and wrapped my arms firmly around her waist, instantly identifying Xiaolan by her voice. A startled gasp echoed out as my hands hit her most ticklish spot, sending her scrambling backward to safety. The stunning blonde beauty pouted, accusing me of becoming increasingly insufferable. Playing along, I gasped dramatically and pretended to just realize she was actually Yukiko, claiming I had been completely fooled. She pouted her red lips and delivered a harmless punch, calling out my terrible acting and reminding me that I would never dare lay a hand on Xiaolan like that. Beside us, Xiaolan offered a shy, gentle greeting. Yukiko clung affectionately to my arm, demanding to know how I always saw through her disguise when her own son was perpetually clueless. Nearby, Shinichi Kudo stood grinding his teeth, burning with pure envy at the sight of me casually surrounded by the 2 most important women in his life. Driven over the edge by my undeniable charming aura, he stepped forward and loudly challenged me to a duel. Shinichi had spent his entire life bathed in spotlight and admiration. With a famous detective novelist for a father, a legendary actress for a mother, brilliant intellect, and top-tier athleticism, he was accustomed to unconditional praise. Then I transferred into his grade. I was taller, faster, smarter, and somehow even more handsome. Aside from my background as an orphan, I outmatched him in virtually every single domain. To make matters worse, my light novel had shattered sales records with over 2 million copies sold per volume. Even his mother invited me over for home-cooked meals, while Xiaolan regularly dropped by my place to help me keep things tidy. Shinichi had tried and failed to outshine me in academics and sports. His ultimate revenge hinged entirely on our initial Pokémon selections. Knowing I had chosen a water-type Froakie, he had strategically snagged a grass-type partner to exploit my elemental weakness, smugly believing this tactical trap would finally shatter my effortless winning streak. Shinichi's tactical mastermind plan was as transparent as a polished window pane, relying entirely on the crude mathematical leverage of a grass-type starter to crush my water-type froglet. He foolishly believed that early-game elemental advantages function like an instant win button, hoping to snag a single fluke victory and permanently retire as an undefeated champion before the real gap in our skill could show. Unluckily for his fragile pride, his shameless shortcut did not sit well with the women in his life. Yukiko's protective maternal instincts immediately kicked into high gear, shielding me like a prized porcelain vase, while firing sharp maternal lightning bolts directly at her son's utter lack of sportsmanship. Ran shared the exact same frustration, having watched Shinichi scour the local botanical preserves like a feverish gardener just to target my specific starter. Ran and I had built a perfectly lovely working arrangement over time, where she frequently came over to keep my living space spotless while I made sure to compensate her handsomely for her efforts, turning our neighborly friendship into a delightful professional routine. Watching her childhood friend turn into a petty, elemental stalking rival gave her an irresistible urge to deliver a swift reality check to his forehead. Shinichi stood there sputtering like a broken teapot as his mother scolded him for acting like an absolute menace. I simply flashed a lazy smile and suggested we all enjoy a peaceful dinner first, casually warning him that a severe defeat on an empty stomach might give him terrible indigestion. This nonchalant acceptance instantly sent Yukiko's blood pressure through the roof, as she panicked over the dreadful possibility of my legendary win streak coming to an end. She clung to my left arm like a human anchor, softly begging me not to take her foolish son seriously. Ran immediately claimed my right hand, warmly urging me to ignore the hyperactive detective altogether. With two breathtaking women physically sandwiching me in a protective cocoon of affection, Shinichi looked as though his head might literally explode into a million fiery pieces. The spectacle naturally transformed us into the main event for every passerby in the hallway. From the outside, the scene was pure comedy. A tall, effortless prince calmly surrounded by two stunning beauties, while a random teenager threw a dramatic temper tantrum like a minor theatrical villain. Whispers rippled through the gathering crowd, with amused onlookers spectating what they assumed was a grand romantic showdown. Giving the soft hands in mine a reassuring squeeze, I casually shrugged off his frantic shouts and agreed to the duel, warning him to bring plenty of tissues for his inevitable post-match tears. With Yukiko and Ran proudly escorting me on either side, I led our ever-growing parade of curious spectators straight into the central battle arena to deliver a thoroughly painful lesson in basic reality. The rumor mill worked with terrifying efficiency, transforming a simple disagreement into an absolute stadium-filling carnival as a sea of spectators swarmed the grandstands. Two trainers who were previously locked in combat promptly packed up their gear, surrendering the central arena to us like theatrical gladiators vacating the main stage. I surveyed the booming audience with total exasperation, wondering why a casual tussle between two freshly minted baby monsters warranted the excitement of a championship tournament. Across the field, Shinichi whipped out his spear like a dramatic stage performer, practically begging the crowd to watch him tear down my reputation piece by piece. He hurled his weapon forward and summoned a rather fragile Bellsprout onto the turf. I could only shake my head at his loud, theatrical posturing, deciding to skip the melodramatic monologue entirely. I gave my blue sphere a light, casual flick, releasing my amphibious protege onto the battle floor. The crowd erupted into an absolute frenzy the second my frog landed on the field. Word quickly spread through the stands that I was the top academic scorer from Sobu High School, but the consensus among the seasoned spectators was overwhelmingly grim for my chances. The self-proclaimed tactical experts in the audience began reciting ancient statistical lore, reminding everyone that elemental matchups at the starter stage carry a brutal 97% win rate for the side with the type advantage. They pitted my poor frog, convinced that a single whip of green foliage would turn my partner into salad green ribbons. I completely ignored the surrounding chatter and quietly scanned my opponent's physical stats like a calculated algorithm. Shinichi's botanical soldier possessed decent attack power, but its offensive menu was strictly limited to a basic physical whip. With an attack stat capped at 21, the mathematical reality was plain as day. A confident grin crept onto my face as I realized just how easily this supposed counter trap would crumble. The arena official raised his signal flags, counting down from 5 before flashing the bright green go-ahead lights. Shinichi immediately bellowed his grand command, ordering his green sprout to whip out its vines. I issued my counter command almost in the exact same breath, telling my frog to launch skyward and unleash a pressurized water beam. All those hours of grueling leg training paid off gloriously. My foot-tall friend launched over 13 feet into the air, completely soaring over the incoming green tentacles. Charging up its internal reservoir mid-flight, my partner unleashed a swift stream of high-pressure liquid directly onto the target's chest. Even though the elemental resistance blunted the damage, the sheer kinetic force still sent the little plant staggering backward across the dirt. Pressing the momentum before my opponent could recalibrate, I ordered an immediate follow-up blast. Real Pokémon battles do not feature turn-based patience, and a second's hesitation will ruin you. Shinichi gritted his teeth and desperately demanded another whip attack, managing to clip my frog for the very first time. My partner swallowed the minor graze and struck back with a second direct current, leaving the Bellsprout wobbling on the absolute edge of total exhaustion. With victory fully locked in, I instructed my frog to wrap things up with a swirling aquatic wave. Shinichi watched in utter disbelief as the devastating damage unfolded, his brain frantically trying to compute whether he was witnessing a rare inherited move or a custom-developed technique. Driven by pure panic, he screamed for his slow, thoroughly soaked plant to dodge the incoming strike. Dodging a thin trickling stream was one thing, but dodging a full-blown oceanic tsunami was an absolute impossibility for a soggy houseplant. The moment my frog felt the sting of its minor injury, its innate torrent power surged, boosting our final water ripple into a devastating tidal wave. The massive blue wave swallowed the poor bellsprout whole, knocking it completely out of commission and concluding our duel in a glorious flash of raw momentum. The official called the match, and the surrounding crowd lost its collective mind. Spectators began screaming in total disbelief, flabbergasted that a starter monster had just utterly shattered a threefold elemental disadvantage. Experienced trainers in the audience immediately recognized that my frog was throwing custom-built, supercharged aquatic artillery, marveling at how a brand-new rookie could foster such absurd talent and high-tier harmony in less than 6 hours. Meanwhile, Shinichi's knees buckled like wet cardboard. He collapsed onto the dirt, staring at his hands in a catatonic trance and endlessly repeating that a type-disadvantaged starter winning was mathematically impossible. Yukiko and Ran stood frozen in the rest area behind me, completely speechless. They had originally set up camp there to offer emotional support and tissues for my anticipated defeat, but now they found themselves caught in a hilarious dilemma. Running over to comfort a dramatically crushed Shinichi right in front of me felt entirely awkward, leaving their minds in a scrambled heap. I promptly recalled my victorious amphibian and escorted my 2 stunning companions away from the scene, only for a glowing system chime to ring inside my head. The universe rewarded my triumphant beatdown with a rare mysterious water drop, a magical oceanic treasure capable of granting a flat 20% power boost to water attacks while permanently skyrocketing a monster's growth potential. Realizing that beating up my rival yielded top-tier loot drops, I had to take 2 deep breaths just to keep my inner greed from bursting into a full-blown maniacal laugh. We casually dropped off my tired partner at the local medical station, leaving the little guy in the capable hands of a sweet-talking nurse. As we strolled out, Ran looked visibly torn about leaving her childhood friend wallowing in the dust. Yukiko simply patted her shoulder and cheerfully pointed out that her son was completely immune to losing to me by now, having turned defeat into a regular routine. I was genuinely amazed by her wonderfully carefree parenting style, silently questioning if Shinichi was secretly adopted. Yukiko immediately grabbed my arm and enthusiastically announced that we were off to celebrate my absolute victory with a lavish feast at a hyper-popular restaurant. Ran and I exchanged a helpless, affectionate glance as we were dragged down the street, with Ran completely forgetting that her hand was still firmly tucked into mine. Yukiko threw open the restaurant doors with a chime, ready to dive into a mountain of delicious food. Before we could even find a table, a familiar voice called out my name from the dining room, stopping us right in our tracks. I turned around to find the famous light novel author Kasumigakake Yudaha staring at me in total surprise, having dragged her high society friends Katanda Eru and Yukino Shida along for their own training session. The universe clearly had a comedic sense of timing, assembling a flawless, 3-person row of high-achieving, long-haired black beauties right inside the restaurant lobby. Yukino Shida, Katanda, and Kasumigakake stood side by side like a living gallery of elegance, ranging from ice-cold grace and gentle charm to seductive sophistication. I took a brief moment to admire the sheer aesthetic perfection of the scene before offering them a smooth, polite greeting. Yukiko instantly shifted into total investigative mode behind her trendy sunglasses, her eyes narrowing as she mentally interrogated how an orphan like me managed to surround himself with a literal harem of top-tier high school royalty. Kasumigakake's sharp gaze naturally drifted down to my arm, zeroing in on the suspiciously squished physical proximity Yukiko was maintaining. I casually signaled a waiter for a private room, deciding it was far wiser to host a grand dinner party for my newly assembled fan club than to let the silent social tension boil over in the main dining hall. Once we settled into the privacy of our room, Ran suddenly realized her hand had been firmly locked in mine the entire time. Her face flushed a brilliant shade of crimson, and she practically leaped away from me, retreating to the furthest seat at the table to hide her complete embarrassment. Stepping into the role of the gracious host, I began introducing my colorful dinner party. I introduced Yukiko first, revealing her identity as a world-famous celebrity. The 3 girls let out a collective gasp, absolutely stunned to be sitting across from legendary stardom, while Yukiko practically beamed with pride and insisted they address her as an affectionate elder sister. Moving down the table, I formally introduced Yukino Shida as our school's runner-up and the heiress of her powerful family, followed by Katanda, the 3rd-place academic prodigy hailing from her own prominent lineage. Yukiko's jaw internally dropped, clearly flabbergasted by the ridiculously high net worth of my social circle. Finally, I presented Kasumigakaka Yudaha, acknowledging her status as our top academic champion and a wildly successful light novel author. When Yudaha expressed shock at my deep knowledge of her literary career, I casually mentioned my own past gig in the publishing realm. Yukiko immediately blew my cover without a shred of mercy, loudly announcing to the room that I was the legendary author behind the runaway blockbuster hit Sword Art Online. Yudaha practically choked on her breath, staring at me with wide, frantic eyes as if she had just unearthed a hidden mythical treasure. I quickly flashed her a subtle wink to keep her from screaming, suppressing her inner fangirl madness just in time. Writing light novels was merely my early game hustle to fund my Pokémon training empire, and now that my pockets were full, I had zero interest in living the frantic life of a famous celebrity author. While I was enjoying my newfound literary fame and holding court with a room full of gorgeous high society maidens, my defeated rival was wandering the streets like a tragic, misunderstood phantom. Shinichi trudged through the city in absolute despair, endlessly soothing his bruised ego by insisting that my victory was purely a fluke brought on by my frog's independent genius rather than my tactical brilliance. Naturally, his wandering existential crisis led him straight into a dark, shady alleyway, the absolute worst place for a self-proclaimed high school detective to roam unattended. Overhearing whispers about illegal creature trafficking, his nose for justice twitched, and he decided to play the stealthy spy behind a stack of crates. Two heavily cloaked black market operatives were busy exchanging a suitcase stuffed with smuggled monster spheres for a box brimming with fresh cash. Shinichi, thoroughly entranced by his own heroic delusions, pulled out his phone to document the crime, completely oblivious to the giant scaly shadow creeping up behind him. Before he could even snap a single photo, a giant snake unleashed a cloud of purple toxic fumes, knocking our aspiring detective out cold before his brain could register the ambush. A towering figure with flowing silver hair and a long trench coat stepped out of the darkness, scolding his brawny assistant for letting a literal teenager tail them. Rather than making a messy scene, the silver-haired mastermind pulled out an experimental, undetectable poison, casually shoving the pill down Shinichi's throat like a human test subject. As the shady duo waited for their high-level syndicate contact to arrive, the toxic chemical concoction had an absurdly bizarre reaction inside the detective's bloodstream. Instead of flatlining, Shinichi began glowing like an overheated radiator, his entire physical frame violently shrinking down into a pint-sized child right in front of the horrified criminal syndicate leaders. Completely unaware that my neighborhood rival was currently undergoing a forced physical regression into a primary school student, I finished a thoroughly delightful, harmonious dinner with Yukiko, Ran, and my long-haired literary fan club. Bidding the ladies a fond farewell, I strolled back to the central medical hub under the cool night sky, where the front desk nurse greeted me with a dazzling smile the second I walked through the door. The front desk nurse practically beamed as she handed back my restored partner, and I signed off on the medical digital tablet with a flick of my wrist. Before I could make my grand exit, she gently flagged me down to announce that the official Pokémon League was eager to catalog my frog's brand new move into their central Pokédex. She warmly pitched the idea of bonus cash rewards if I felt like revealing the secret blueprints behind the technique, but I politely declined to act as a selfless charity. I agreed to let them log the raw visual data and damage metrics, but I kept my private ninja tactical secrets firmly under wraps. She guided me into a massive, state-of-the-art testing facility spanning over 200 square meters. The resident data technician flipped on his high-tech tracking gadgets, and I tossed my blue sphere into the central pool with a casual splash. My energetic aquatic protege bounded out, ready to put on a show. I decided to keep things embarrassingly simple, instructing my buddy to alternate between firing basic water beams and surging aquatic waves at the target dummies to wrap up the demonstration as quickly as possible. The technician stared at his digital readout in absolute horror as the maximum power meter peaked at a terrifying 285 points. Freshly caught starter partners usually hit like gentle foam, struggling to squeak out damage anywhere between 60 and 150 points. My frog had just smashed the upper limit of starter strength by double, leaving the poor data analyst staring at his screens as if he had just witnessed a mythical dragon hatch from a regular chicken egg. I ignored his gaping jaw and strode out of the testing room, fully intent on capitalizing on the prime evening rush. The training complex was buzzing with high school seniors overflowing with youthful hubris, making it the perfect hunting ground for quick glory. I immediately rented out a private battle ring, tossed a casual 100,000 dragon coins into the public prize pool, and set up an open King of the Hill challenge. At just 100 coins a ticket for a shot at a 10,000 coin payout, ambitious trainers swarmed the perimeter like bees to fresh honey. A overly confident guy from my school named Aki Tomoya sprinted up to scan the entry code, stepping onto the dirt with a smug, self-satisfied grin. Realizing he was just another classmate attempting to exploit my frog's water type with an elemental counter, I tossed my super ball onto the field and signaled the referee to skip the dramatic pre-match banter. In an official King of the Hill setup, the reigning champion dictates the speed of the show, meaning the referee immediately started the 5-second countdown the second my partner touched the turf. Panicking as the timer ticked away, Tomoya frantically hurled his sphere to release a little oddish onto the grass. The referee signaled the start, and I instantly commanded my frog to unleash a supercharged water wave. Tomoya tried to shout out a counterorder in the exact same breath, but he completely froze in confusion upon hearing my unique move name, leaving his poor plant standing in the middle of the arena in total silence waiting for a command that never came. If my opponent's little green sprout had possessed the gift of human speech, it would have undoubtedly forfeited on the spot to file a formal complaint against its own trainer. Charging headfirst into a battle and standing completely still while your opponent powers up a massive strike is not a tactical strategy. It is a fast track to the nearest recovery ward. My frog needed no second invitation, unleashing a surging wall of pressurized liquid that slammed squarely into the frozen plant. Before Tomoya could even register his complete lack of rhythm, I commanded my partner to maintain the pressure and launch another aquatic assault. Driven by pure panic, Tomoya finally managed to blurt out an order, instructing his grass-type partner to spit out a stream of corrosive acid. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at his sheer tactical genius. Choosing a poison attack over a grass-type move when holding a natural elemental advantage is a truly unique approach to victory. The brave little sprout attempted to hold the line, but its weak toxic stream was instantly swallowed by my frog's rushing wave, sending the poor plant flying across the ring once again. Tomoya's oddish was slightly less durable than Shinichi's bellsprout, and after absorbing 2 consecutive full-force water waves, its health was officially in the red zone. I pressed the advantage without a single second of hesitation, ordering one final blast to close out the match. My frog hadn't shifted its position by an inch since the opening bell, while Tomoya frantically recalled his fainting partner back into its sphere. Facing a barrage of snickers from the surrounding crowd, Tomoya buried his face in his hands, gritting his teeth as he barked out a dramatic promise to return for a rematch before sprinting toward the medical station. I merely curled my lip at his exit, entirely unfazed by his exit line. A cheerful system notification chimed in my head, granting me a fresh water-type energy cube for the victory. I wiped the field, glanced at the lingering crowd, and casually called for the next challenger. The line of hopeful contenders kept moving, and the battle rewards kept rolling in. Over the course of the next hour, my frog picked up a modest collection of minor battle injuries. However, thanks to its innate ability that boosts attack power as health drops, being slightly bruised only turned my partner into a high-powered water cannon. When its health finally dipped too low, I popped open one of the special healing potions provided by the system rewards. Unlike standard commercial spray bottles that take hours to patch up a monster, or expensive medical pods that take several minutes, the system's special brew worked like a literal video game health item. A quick application restored my frog to absolute peak condition in a matter of seconds. By the end of my hour-long arena run, I had pocketed over 20 energy cubes and an assortment of instant remedies, while my frog absorbed the essence of 3 cubes to reach level 10. The experience curve was scaling up drastically, meaning my current stash of 40 cubes wouldn't even be enough to carry us to level 20. However, my eyes drifted to the glowing, mysterious water drop sitting quietly in my inventory. In the open market, elemental treasures capable of granting a permanent 20% damage boost are insanely rare relics retrieved from dangerous wild realms. Even the cheapest bug-type treasure in recorded history sold for over 24 million dragon coins, while a water-type artifact like mine easily fetched over 60 million at high-end auctions. Holding a fortune in the palm of my hand, I smiled softly at the sheer profitability of my evening workout. The moment I stepped across my threshold, I double-locked the front door to guarantee complete security. Public training facilities might offer plenty of space, but they lack absolute privacy, and I had no intention of serving up my prize in front of a stadium full of curious onlookers. My plan was simple: Bring the divine treat home and let my little amphibious partner devour it in peace. I snapped my fingers and released my blue buddy into the living room. The second it materialized, its eyes locked onto the glowing blue jewel resting in my palm with the intensity of a starving predator. The treasure looked like an ornate, crystalline droplet, radiating a pure stream of water energy that proved irresistible to any aquatic creature. Smiling at its wide-eyed fascination, I handed over the orb, giving my partner permission to consume the precious prize. With a lightning-fast flick of its tongue, my frog gulped the entire gem down in one smooth swallow. The transformation was immediate and spectacular. An explosive, brilliant blue light erupted from its belly, turning my room into a churning vortex of raw elemental force. My little friend closed its eyes, floating comfortably amidst the surging tide as its power began to climb at a terrifying, game-breaking pace. I hastily pulled up my system interface to monitor the stats, watching the numbers spin out of control like a broken slot machine. The level counter sprinted from level 14 straight through 16, triggering a blinding evolutionary flash that transformed my little frog into a frogadier. The momentum didn't even pause. It surged past level 36, sparking a second back-to-back evolution right before my eyes. When the light finally settled, I was no longer looking at a 30-centimeter baby frog. Standing in front of me was a majestic, 5-foot-tall Greninja, completely evolved with maxed-out individual stats, its dark blue form radiating champion-tier potential. Its level had skyrocketed by 29 whole stages in a single breath, landing firmly at level 39. I clenched my fists and took a deep breath, fighting off a wave of sheer adrenaline. Gaining 34 levels on day 1 was the ultimate, undisputed cheat code. Because of our profound bond, every ounce of power gained by my partner echoed through my own physical frame. I felt an incredible surge of strength washing over my muscles, giving me the absurd urge to step outside and test if I could slash a mountain in half with my bare hands. Greninja stretched her sleek limbs and stood up gracefully. With her slender dark blue body, starry leg markings, and her long pink tongue wrapped stylishly around her neck like a ninja scarf, she looked incredibly cool. Patting her on the head, I chuckled, immensely relieved that my partner turned out to be female. At least I wouldn't have to spend my days traveling alongside a rough male ninja hanging his tongue out all afternoon. Having absorbed the divine artifact, Greninja seemed to mature instantly, dropping her former cute act for a calm, composed aura. Meanwhile, despite a grueling schedule of battles, celebrations, and divine upgrades, I felt completely energized, my elevated attributes rendering fatigue entirely obsolete. With the late hours settling in and nothing better on my agenda, I decided a hot bath was the perfect capstone to a wild day. I had just picked up my towel and was heading toward the bathroom when a sudden digital chime echoed loudly in my mind, announcing that group member Kane Kocho had just issued a dire emergency mission. I instantly ditched my bath plans, tossed my clothes onto the furniture, grabbed my blue sphere, and sprinted into the living room to recall Greninja before she could protest. Daytime had been a total whirlwind, leaving me zero opportunity to check the group chat notifications, let through to figure out what kind of multidimensional chaos was unfolding. I hurriedly opened the mission interface, finding a 12-hour apocalyptic contract requesting aid to defeat Upper Moon 2, Doma, with a rapidly ticking countdown that left under 3 minutes to join. The prompt specified a minimum strength rating of F, reminding me of an obscure feature I had completely ignored earlier. To be fair, compared to my cheat system that showered me with maxed affinity, full ninjutsu scrolls, and 60 million coin evolutionary drop items, the chat group felt like a stingy vending machine, offering measly login points. Naturally, I hadn't bothered reading the fine print until now. Opening the diagnostic panel revealed a neat tier list mapping out local power levels, scaling from beginner-level F-rank monsters all the way up to S-rank champions. Relieved to see that even entry-level partners qualified, I promptly smashed the accept button, triggering a 2-minute portal countdown. A quick peek at my own profile showed my stats had synchronized with Greninja, locking me in at a solid D rank. Considering that over 80% of wild creatures never even reach the elite level 40 benchmark in their entire lives, my level 39 ninja partner earning a D rating right off the bat was proof enough of her absurd, god-tier potential. Before hopping through the portal, I reluctantly opened the main chat log, only to be met with a terrifying wall of over 99 unread messages. Coming from my previous life, where my dorm chat barely scraped 50 messages a week, seeing 4 women generate a mountain of text in a single afternoon was absolute nightmare fuel. Biting the bullet, I scrolled through the endless chatter to assess the crisis. It turned out Kane had bumped into Doma while out on a patrol and instantly raised the alarm. Perusing the group profiles, I found that Marikawa Shizuka and the Holy Emperor were sitting at pitiful G-rank tiers, making them completely useless for combat. Meanwhile, Xianyun held a formidable B- to A-rank range, giving our rescue squad plenty of firepower. Having pieced together the exact situation, I closed the chat, ready to step through the portal and deliver a very sharp, aquatic surprise to a very unfortunate demon.